When I was in college, I had a skiing accident. I fell on my pole and tore a ligament in my thumb. When I look down at my thumb, I can see the scar from the surgery. I often think that where the skin knits together, it heals the wound, but it leaves a mark. It's never quite the same as it was before. And I can think of other scars on my body, scars from burns or falls or other surgeries from years gone by. Maybe as you're listening to me, you're thinking about your own scars, things that you have on your body that healed, but aren't quite the same as they were before. Today, it is my pleasure to have Troy Fontana on the episode. We are going to talk about scars because he is the recent best-selling author of a book with that title, Scars: Secrets to Master Your Mind and Turn Your Pain, Trauma, and Loss into a Superpower. This is a deep conversation because we aren't just talking about physical scars. We're talking about the grief, the wounds, the experiences we've had where we've needed to heal, and the internal scars that we build in order to heal those wounds. I think you're going to find that Troy is a deep soul. He has a magnetic energy and he is wise, so wise, and that wisdom is built from his experiences. He is a best-selling author. He is a speaker. He's a renowned coach, and he's extremely inspiring. I know you're going to enjoy this episode, and so I'm going to invite you to sit back and listen in as Troy Fontana shares his story. This is It Just Takes One. One person, one experience, one moment to change your life. Hello, Troy. Welcome to It Just Takes One.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so excited that as we're sitting here, I actually have your book in my hand, which, by the way, looks and feels amazing. This is the hardcover copy, and it looks phenomenal. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. It's like it's a beautiful moment when it all kind of comes together. So yeah, thank you.
I actually want to start there because we worked on this book together over the past year. And I know a lot of the people that follow this podcast and that are listening are people who are looking to write or, have thought about writing, but haven't taken that next step. And they're just always, kind of wondering, how do you go into this process and how do you really finally make the commitment to do it? And then what's that process like? So I would love for you to start right there talking about from the end result, when you actually got the book finished. Let's backtrack on this. Like when you actually held this book in your hand for the first time, what did that feel like?
Yeah, it's a special process because it's a special moment because of the process. And, it's kind of like this culmination point where you see this. I've never been pregnant, but I would assume it's something similar where you're like, man, I've been working on this thing, and then finally it's there. That moment arrives, and it's special, and to actually get it in your hands is a really cool feeling. And it's more about, for me anyways, it was the things it took to get there. That's what you're actually like proud of, because, and it's probably good for people to know, like the first draft I wrote, I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this sucks. And then the second draft, I'm like, all right, we got something here. And then the third draft, I'm like, all right. And then the fourth draft, then I'm like, damn, like I feel some emotions, and then pretty soon you're like, man, this is gonna like really help people out. But it's like a process. And like I have this kind of analogy I use with life. I tell people, like, it's always a rough draft. Like life is a rough draft. And so we can drop these perfectionism type things and it needs to be perfect and this and that. Like, no, it doesn't, At the end of the day, that book was for me. And it was for me to kind of work through my experiences in life and for me to organize them and share something that, even if my kids read it someday, done, right? Like, cool, that's enough. But it's a legacy piece in a way. And everything is like that. And if it catches fire and moves here, moves there, fantastic, you know. And it's been really cool to hear people say, like, man, I can't put this down. Like, this is really awesome, you know. But that's just icing on the cake to me. It was already for me, for those people close to me, for the people who kind of been with me through these experiences. Like, that's what it was for.
That's really good. I think it's so important to make that delineation between, like, it has to be perfect and it has to be done. You know, there's a process to get through it. You work through that process, and there's a moment when you do finish it and say, I completed what I needed to do for this, and now it's time for the book to go out and do whatever it's going to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the time is now. And it's, you know, if
Mm.
you read the book, you see that the time really, really is like right now. Like there's no point in waiting. Like take the shot. Expiration date has passed. Do the thing. Just do it. And you'll feel better because of it.
Mm. So good. Well, that brings us to actually the title of the book.
Yeah.
Because yes, you wrote it for yourself and for those closest to you and for those who have been through those things with you. But the title of the book is really intriguing. It's Scars, as those of you that are watching can see. Um, Tell us why you actually named it Scars. It wasn't the first title that you came up with. It was the one that finally arrived. Why this title?
Well, I think scars tell a story. And you have two types of scars. You have scars that you can see and scars that you don't see. And both of those tell a story. Like one scar might be the heartbreak, that you don't see a physical wound, but there's a story behind it. And you have other scars, like, you know, getting half your ear bitten off and scar on your forehead and these different things that tell another kind of story. And if we just kind of hold those to ourselves, there's no magic. But your scars, when you go into them and you share the story of the wounds, of the heartbreak, of the moment that took place and what you learned from it, you unlock your superpowers. And also, then that gets shared with other people who go, oh, I have scars too. And it gives them permission to then open up and share their scars and go into that same magic. And so it really was coming to realize that scars are nothing to be hidden from. You know, like when I first like got my like these new physical scars, it was kind of like, oh no, like my face, you know. And then it was like a switching of moments where I was like, okay, so what? Like they're here and they tell a story. And that's a life worth living, having a unique life and having moments in life that stretch you. And sometimes they give you scars. And then those scars become part of your story. And that's what makes a really magnetic journey that people are drawn towards and unlocks magic for you as well along the way.
Mm. Which is, we need to dive into that a little deeper because it's such a beautiful way of looking at the scars, the physical and the non-physical scars that we all have. And yet it's hard. It's not easy to tell those stories. It's not easy to share what happened. What do you say to somebody who says, "Yeah, I've got lots of scars and I can't share them because it's just too hard."
Yeah. You know, I understand the fear of going into those scars and those wounds, but I would really encourage someone, and you know, you do it in your own time and your own way, with support, with help, whatever you feel like will help you in that journey. But if you don't go into those scars, then I think they become actual wounds and they kind of manifest in other ways that you won't like them to. You know, they'll create dis-ease, and dis-ease eventually creates disease. And so if you go into these scars, these wounds, and you unearth them, it's kind of like stepping into a cold shower. Like there's that moment where you're like, ah, frick, I hate this, you know. And then right afterwards, you're like, damn, I'm glad I did that. I feel a lot better. It's like that 10 times. And that was really a lot of the journey that I went into. Was I didn't understand you could do that or what that even meant. I didn't even understand what healing meant. Like that, I was like, what do you mean heal? Like I'm not hurt or nothing, you know. I'm a guy, I gotta be tough. And then, you know, I went into those, well, essentially like my life collapsed around me until I was forced to really look at those wounds. and unpack them. And then you find out there's so much magic there. So I'd really encourage somebody, like, you're not unlocking your superpowers and your magic that's inside you, because pain is nothing to be like, we have so much conditioning around comfort and taking things easy. And yeah, you don't want to like create pain, but pain is nothing to shy away from. When pain comes, because it will come, welcome it, move into it, because it's going to strengthen you. It's powerful force, a very beautiful and powerful and necessary force. Like, just think about anything worth having. Anyone that's interesting has gone through challenging things in their life. And the more you can actually open up to it, the more you can get from it and extract from it. Not to become the victim of it, but there's so many lessons there and little things that shape you and craft you. That's magic. That's special. And it's relatable because, this came to me once in meditation. Scars is the only universal language. It's our wounds that connect us. We all speak that language. That is the universal language.
Mm. So good. And a lot of actually what you share in the book is how you managed to do that for yourself. So listeners, if you're listening to this and thinking, man, this does sound intriguing, maybe I need to think about how healing would work for me. Troy, you give them a lot of suggestions and ideas in this book. Let's talk a little more what's in the book, and I think we need to share also a little bit more about your story so people get a sense of, you just mentioned your life kind of was imploding around you. Let's unpack that a little bit and give them a little bit more of your background and really some of the wounds that you experienced that led to scars, which taught you the lessons.
Well, yeah, the introduction starts with a near-death experience, which was an attack from someone very close to me that I was kind of like hit, surprised by. Went to go help somebody, and they attacked me. And this person is a trained individual and damn near took my life. And it took every ounce of everything I had to defend this off and get out of there and stay alive. But that brought some powerful gifts that I later share in the book. And then the book starts after the introduction with me kind of sharing a brief kind of introduction to my life journey. And part of that is coming from a small town, kind of stumbling upon personal training because I had an athletic background, and like quickly excelling in that industry. And I built a business. I ended up buying the locations of my business. Everything's just thriving. And then there's the recession of 2008. And I remember, everyone saying like the economy is crashing. I'm like, I didn't even know what that meant. Like, what is an economy and how can it crash? Right? Like, I don't get it. Like, don't we just make money and, spend it? And, so really being blindsided by that. And then that led to losing my business, losing a lot of people close to me. You lose your vocation, right? When a man is broke, they're often broken and, eventually into bankruptcy, and then allowing that to be my story for a season. And then that led to other problems, right? And that's a lot of what I talk about, keyword there, allowing that to be my story. And for something to be a truth, we have to agree to it in our mind. And so that led me down this kind of like dark path. And that's kind of like the section one. Section two is me coming out of that and understanding and learning all these tools that I start to share, where I really go into my scars and my wounds and start to unearth things and really gain some powerful like insights that led to, my new iteration of coaching, because originally it was personal training, the physical aspects, and now it's like this, mental, spiritual, emotional, all this stuff, and unearthing some really, really unique, powerful things. And then it leads to like the last section, which is having this near-death experience, going through a divorce, but being much better equipped to handle these things. Not that they weren't painful and there wasn't challenging moments, but it was like I already had the blueprint. And I just kind of followed that, and I was able to move through these much quicker. And then I share with you these unique secrets that were kind of given to me through my experiences and also from some mentors along the way that are really unique, really transformative, and will help anyone, if they really lean into them, to live a beautiful life. And I have like the special gift of being so close to death's door and going through so much painful experiences to really realize, like, I mean it when I say it, like the time is now. And so I live with this deep gratitude and at the same time, like clarity of vision. Like, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. This is who I'm spending time with. This is how I choose to show up in the world. And with this certainty that is a superpower in itself. And so I don't want you to have to go through all the stuff I went through. So maybe you could, go through the book, and you've had your own experiences that you'll see as you go through it. There's all kinds of different little stories I share in there that you'll be like, damn, I went through something similar. Or, yeah, I can relate to that. And, I had my own form of betrayal, my own form of heartbreak, my own form of losing money or being broke or poor or whatever it is, having a dream broken. And so there's a lot of relatable stuff in there. And then you can see how someone can take that and really turn it around and make something powerful out of it.
We're gonna touch on so many of those things that you just mentioned, but I want to say something because I just got off a call before this with another client and had this same discussion, and you just touched on it. So I want to open it up a little bit, which is, you said it's not that you learned all these things, you went through these heartbreaks and these problems, and you battled your way and you learned the lessons, and then you ended up having, toward the end of the book, you share the divorce and then this experience that you talk about in the introduction where you had this near-death experience, and you said, I was so much better able to handle it, I was better equipped. And the conversation I just had was the woman saying, that she wanted to not feel down anymore. And the conversation was, it's not about not feeling that. It's not that you're not going to get wounded again. It's not that you won't feel pain. It's not that you won't feel hurt. It's that you get better able to handle it. Speak a little more to that, because I do think there is this perception that the best life is one that's always great, and that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
shouldn't feel these things, and that we have to try and minimize them. But you feel differently from your experience. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think people waste time, energy in their life, resources trying to avoid pain when pain is part of the journey and it's part of the reason we're here. And pain gives you some special gifts. And so, again, not that you're moving towards it, like you should, you want to create a beautiful life, you want to do these things, but you also at the same time want to develop skill sets that make you better equipped to handle the challenging moments, right? Because when you go through things, it brings a grounded energy, it brings a deep present, it cuts out the noise. And that is spiritual to me. That is like elevated to me. And those are part of the reasons you are here. Your life travels along a linear journey, but at the same time, it's traveling a vertical journey. And if you look at that, that is a cross. And so it's a heavy thing to bear. But that's the journey. What are you going to do? Run from everything or like step into it? And I think the reason we lack tools and resources is because no one teaches that crap. It's like, oh, here's how you can make your money. Here's how you can do this. Here's how you can avoid everything. Instead of like, yes, do those things because you want to do them. But along the way, be better equipped to handle the things, right? Like learn, like you have very little control of things in life. But one of the things that you do have control over is your mind, your thoughts, right? Like in going through the divorce, and I talk about this in the book, it's like you get to decide what that means. Like not society. Society will try to tell you what that means to you. It'll try to say, oh, how sad, oh, how bad, oh, you're a label now. Like, screw that. Like, I just knew going in, I'm like, no, that's not going to be my story. People should come up to me and say, I'm proud of you. Way to go. Not like, oh, I'm not a hurt fucking animal. You know what I mean? I'm not like wounded, right? Like, I should be encouraged. I went through, it took a lot to freaking do that. And with my kids, like I'm only going to show them that energy. I could be at the bar, drunk, hanging out, all depressed, or it could be like, yo, guess what? We get to enjoy time with mom. We get to enjoy time with dad. When you're with dad, we're going to do these kinds of things, or we're going to do this. And it's like positive, positive, positive. And because of that, that's exactly what my kids embody. Like there's never been a flinch of them like, oh, I've had my moments where I'm like, damn, I have to grieve a little bit of this or grieve a little bit of that. But I don't have to attach to those things. I don't have to become them. Like when you see or experience sadness, you can say, oh, there is sadness, not I am sadness. There's sadness. I'm alive. I'm human, right? Oh, there's gratitude. There's hope. And you'll go through a myriad of these things. and just feel them. It's okay, right? We don't have to attach and be them, right? The thing that you are is you. It's this deep, powerful source, but you are creating your reality with how you choose to frame it in your mind.
Mhm. I have to share this because you just brought up something. I don't know if I had told you that I decided to learn Irish. So we did our Ireland writing retreat this past June, a couple months
Yeah,
ago, and I wanted to learn Irish before we went. I've always wanted to, and I got a course, and it was brilliant. She does a great job. Irish with Molly, for anybody that's interested. She's a beautiful teacher, and she does a great job. But one of the first things that we learned is that in the Irish language, they actually speak what you just said. So in English, we actually use the words I am sad, like you
yeah.
just
Mhm.
mentioned.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
create our identity as I am this. Therefore, that is who I am. It is what I
Yeah.
am, right? It is an identity. But in Irish, they say, sadness is upon me. Tá
Oh, wow.
bron
Mhm.
sadness is upon me, or happiness is upon me, tá áthas and that is this fleeting thing that you said. You don't have to attach to the identity of that emotion. You can simply let it be, like a cloud settling upon you, or like a mist that's floating through, and you just notice it and you have it, and then you move on. So I love that because that's exactly what they do in that language.
Yeah, how cool is that? It just shows you how powerful your words are too,
Mm.
right? And yeah, and that's your mind, right? Whatever the mind is in or creating, then the words are going to kind of follow. And so, yeah, I spend a lot of time my challenging moments really processing, like, okay, this is what and there's always something behind it, right? If I'm experiencing sadness or sadness is upon me, right?
Mm.
What is that? About what? Like, listen to it, feel it. Oh, it's about this. I'm having a little grieving moment of missing this. Okay, cool. And maybe something about that I control. Maybe I'm missing my kids, right? It's like, cool. Maybe I can set up a little play date this afternoon. Fantastic, right? Or maybe I just got to go, yeah, man, I have gratitude for all these moments together. And life is on a continuum. There'll be other moments and more moments. Maybe I can schedule a little trip or whatever it is. I can put some action behind it, or I can just feel it. That's okay too. But that's cool. When there's vulnerability with action, that's strength. But when you are vulnerable and there's no action, that's weakness. And so just look, I can be vulnerable, but put some action to it. That's strength. It's cool. It's a powerful thing to do.
Mm. Really beautiful. So you just shared the three sections of the book and how it's laid out. And the first section is really a lot about your story and some of those ups and downs that you talked about. But there was, you sort of shared them, as like the cloud going through, these things happen. I want to go a little deeper because I do really think that we all have experiences that we can relate to. And so when people hear your story a little more deeply, I think they'll even feel it with you a little more deeply.
Yeah.
So you did have this, in fact, the moment when we first met, you were in the fitness industry at that point, and you were a trainer. You were part of the Todd Durkin Mastermind Group. You actually became one of the coaches for that program, which I later became a coach after you had moved on. So I first met you as a fitness professional, and then you were on the rise at that point. You were building your business, as you talked about. You bought those buildings, correct? And you were really seeing from a financial prosperity standpoint, you were doing very well. And then you and I lost track. I saw bits and pieces, but I didn't know until we started working on this book, some of those valleys that you dipped into from there. You went through that recession you talked about, and relationship issues and other businesses. But at the end of section one, you really talk about rock bottom. You talk
Yeah.
about the moment that through all those peaks and valleys that you experienced, there was a moment where you really hit the bottom. Can you share a little bit more about that so people can hear that story and maybe feel that with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing some light around that. It's kind of like anybody who's maybe going through something or has gone through a lot, right? You can reach moments where you kind of get to where you're like, I'm just tired of what feels like losing, right? Just this repeated process. And what I didn't know at the time is And this is why it's so important to go into your wounds and your scars. This is a little bit deeper. I don't even know if I really talk about this in the book, but like a little bit deeper is I believe there's part of you that calls forth similar experiences in a hope that they get healed and fixed. And so it's like a lot of times people be in like a relationship loop and you'll hear them say, like, I just keep meeting the same type of person. Well, absolutely, because those wounds are trying to get healed, but you're not putting the awareness around the wounds. And so you just repeat it. And if you change it the next time, this is the time you use boundaries. This is the time to say, hey, it's not okay to talk to me like that. And so I wasn't aware of that. And so I have this loss in business where I have bankruptcy and, I'm struggling. And instead of like pausing and learning and healing from it, I was like, I got to go fix it. And so then I go out into another business and, I kind of share in the book how I start to create success again. And then I get betrayed by some business partners. And then that like repeats itself again. And as this is going on, my wife and I at the time are having kids. And so it's like, my level of responsibility is going up, but my ability to handle those responsibilities seems to be separating itself. And so there's this big void being created. And it eventually leads to me, I've been a business owner for, let's say, a decade or whatever it is at the time. It leads to me getting a job managing a gym. And, that's a great job. And many people be very excited about it. And, for all accounts, it was. But all I could see was a reflection of I've owned my own gyms, my own businesses, and now here I'm managing someone else's. And there's a lot of other stuff to it, but it really created this moment where I was like, I don't think I'm fit to do this anymore. And maybe my kids, I start questioning, like maybe my kids are better off with somebody else, something else. Maybe I'm the one dragging everything down. And what I learned through that moment is rock bottom experiences aren't always a bad thing. And sometimes they're, in fact, the necessary thing. Because when you hit bottom, you get like a little bounce, right? And that little bounce actually maybe is the only thing that creates momentum in the other direction. And deep pain opens a window and it allows you a little opportunity, if you will do it, to go through that window and really look at everything. And it strips everything away. Like you got nothing left. Like I was just done. Like, all right, any ego of Troy, any person I built is like gone. Like I'm all whatever higher powers there are, like I'm all there, like I'm yours. Done. I don't get it. But that was what I needed. And that's really what led me down that healing journey was like start to unearth those things. And it was a deep process because deep pain can create deep wounds and it can get into your nervous system. Yeah, I mean, I share stories about, my wife at the time, like shopping and like overspending just a little bit. And it would like literally cause panic in me because I had financial problems at one point. And then having to rewire that and be like, it's okay. We're not there anymore. I'm moving, I'm learning, whatever. But it gives you the opportunity to rewire these things. But when you don't do that, you just can kind of create this downward spiral. And so that's where I was at. And it led me to a place where it was literally like a rock bottom moment. And thank goodness, man, like I had a little bounce, got some
Had a little
momentum.
bounce. You
Mhm.
actually, and I just love the way you just described that. You actually don't describe it quite like that in the book. So I really love that you just added that piece to it, because you were standing in a park, is the way you describe it. And you were actually looking at the homeless people that were
Right.
around you.
I was jealous. I'm like, damn. Mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. Like there was a little bit of like, man, they don't have to worry about anything.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
But then you went home, and the next day was the bounce. The next day, when you woke up, something felt lighter. What do you think that was?
I think it was like I actually had a moment where like I really just kind of let go. Like I let go of like any it sounds weird, right? Because I think it's good to have ambitions and goals and dreams and stuff. But it's like I had let all that go. Like I was at like a zero place. I was like, dude, like I'm not like control, you know what I mean? It's like any control of anything, identity, goals, dream, anything was just gone. It was like this zero ground. And, part of what I share in that book is the next day, because one of my pain points was around our home. We had a very tiny house, and all three of my kids shared the same room. And that used to like piss me off. I'd be like, man, like, like I wore it as like a failure, right? And again, I have to create identity for it to be that. And I was creating identity like this is like my inadequacies. Like they all live in the same room. We have this tiny house, blah, 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 right? And it was like that morning, I was cleared out. The brain was just empty, the ego was gone. And I heard them laughing and playing in their room. It's emotional now to think about. And I start like crying because I'm like, oh no, like they don't see what I see. They're happy. They're cool. And my kids they are to this day, like very close. They call themselves the three little buddies, and like, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to look at this as like a great thing. And they all shared a room and how cool that was. And remember that? And I'm like, what am I doing? And I like grab my pen and paper and I start journaling. And that led me down this whole process of like reframing things and finding gratitude and everything. And if you think about, like energetics in a way, you could think of things in like this heavy, kind of darker energy, right? And so your brain, I believe, can get trapped and or addicted to certain types of energy, and they can work like a parasite. And that parasite was sucking my life, right? And so it's like this heavy energy. But when I cleared everything out, it was like I got to reframe it. And I was like, wait, this is good, right? This is a positive. This is to be grateful for. And it was like a new energy that I started feeding from, getting my energy from. And then there comes the switch from a downward spiral to an upward spiral.
I heard an interview yesterday with Anne Lamott when I was working out. I was listening to Rituals podcast and she was on it. And she had a quote that said, heaven is just a new pair of glasses.
Nice. Yeah. I really believe, I think heaven is here on earth, and it's through your perspective, because that was a perfect example of the same situation having two entirely different meanings.
Yeah.
And it was
Two
exactly
different eyesight, your perception completely different. And
Yep.
and the resulting action steps, emotion, all of it, what followed
Yep.
changed everything.
Yep.
So you spend the second part of the book actually talking about some of these lessons. In fact, right after that moment, you say, it's fascinating how the stories you tell yourself can so powerfully influence your emotion and actions. That night, I realized the liberating power of observing my thoughts, just to the point we made, right? And you go on to talk about some of these lessons. One of the things that you spend a good amount of time talking about, you just mentioned, is energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is an important thing to share, because I also see us as energy, and sort of you just described the downward spiral versus the upward spiral. Energy is always moving. We are energy and we're moving it. Talk a little bit more about energy and how you see that in being such an important force in our life.
Yeah. Well, first to preface, like there was a moment in time where if someone said something about energy, I'd be like, energy, you're weird, right? So if anybody feels that way, been there. But as I was going through these processes of healing, and I go into it obviously in more detail in the book, but like I couldn't help but not feel energy, because I could feel certain thoughts, and I could like, because I was becoming more in tune with my body and like this inner journey, right? It was almost like I could feel the thick like gum of the thought and the energy and this heaviness. And I was like, oh, and my body for a season felt that way. And then as I would like reframe, even that simple story I share with like the kids, as I would reframe certain stories and certain things, it was like I could feel that my body and the energy just kind of like poof, like lighten. I'm like, whoa, what's up here? And so I went on this like energetic journey, and I learned a lot about just that, right? Energy, and how not only energy, but there's like a resonance of energy. And it's much like this kind of came to me like in a vision, right? But it's like kind of like a radio dial. Like, around here we tune into like 98.1 is country and 102.9 is hip hop or whatever, right? And it was like my thoughts do the same. And so as an example, I mentioned earlier real quick about, like, let's say, my wife at the time comes home from shopping, and in my mind, I perceive it as she overspends, and then I get anxious. And let's say I'm not healed at that moment. I have no awareness around it. I start to brew and ruminate and get frustrated. Well, now my brain starts to cycle with that kind of energy, all these fears, things of the past. And then maybe I'm like spouting out at her and being aggressive, And so there's an energetic resonance. And so I was like, whoa, like, and then that starts to spiral out and you start to create from that reality. And so I was learning in real time as I would change these stories, because I'd go in, I talk about it in the book. I go in my office and I created this little like meditation center, and I didn't mean to even, it just kind of naturally happened. But I would unearth and change these stories. And then it would, like, I'd have this new resonance when I come out, and I'd be very light and open and creative. And then that started to expand into my life. And then my life chart started to change for the better. And so I realized that, like, the doorway to success opens inward, not outward. We're all looking for change outside of us, but it's inside. And so as I did this work, as I changed my energy, as I lightened everything, those addictive patterns of, let's say it's 5 o'clock at night and I'm going to bed and I start to ruminate on things and worry, just started to disappear because I couldn't resonate with them anymore. In fact, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I remember a while back being at a kids event, and there were some parents who were standing next to me, and they're like gossiping, and then they like look at me and start like to pull me into their gossip. And I remember feeling like kind of shocked, and I couldn't it's like I couldn't connect, and I'm just like, and I just kind of like left, and I was like, but later, like, I was like, whoa, like, because that has a resonance, and there's no judgment, you know what I mean? But like, that has a resonance to it. That's a lower level resonance. I couldn't connect to it. I couldn't relate. And so you're just always elevating your energy and what you're resonating with. And then, coming back to like the fitness stuff, it's really made me in general, like, look at everything. Like the food I eat, like, I see right through it and I look at the energy of it. Like, did the sun feed this at some point? Right? Or is this spent its life cycle in a box and is processed? And that has an energetic resonance. And where did this come from? And where, blah, blah, blah. And so everything, like, this is energy that I'm putting into my body. A conversation with someone is energy. A way I think is energy. And I just want it to be good, light, positive. Like, if I got a choice, or at least somewhat of a choice or a play in this, might as well play it to the positive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that resonance of the dial again. If I want to be on 102.1, I got to keep my dial
Yeah.
there as much as I can. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
gets staticky, or I end up on 92.8, and it's not where I want to be. Yeah, I love the way that you just described that, because I do think people do feel like energy's a little woo-woo, and it seems weird or out there. And yet the way you described it is so powerful that it is everything. It's all things. And
Yeah.
how much are you tuned into it? How much are you intentional about the energy in your life, and that you're bringing in and that you're putting out?
Right. Yeah. And I get that. Like, it's like anything, it could be taken to the extreme or painted in a certain way. And I think I have a relatable way to explain energy, and especially coming from a place where I was like, energy. But it was very intimate and personal to me. Like, everything that I share is like felt, like I went through it, you know.
Yeah, it's very authentic. And as you read the book, listeners, go out and get the book. As you read it, you're going to see that you come to the end of into section 3, where you're sharing some of your secrets, some of the secrets to a transformed life. That's the name of the section. And one of the final things you say, which I love, is, I've come to realize life is fundamentally about the dance.
Mhm, mhm.
What do you mean by that?
Man, like, it really is the moments along the way. One of the things I did this summer was take my kids to all these national parks and these cool, like unique places, and the Grand Canyon and the redwoods and beaches. And, when you get there, it's awesome, right? Like they're really cool. But my favorite moments were the drives together,
Mm.
hands down, just the drives. And so it really reminds you, like, it's the journey, it's the dance. And, you know, it is the dance because if you knew all the pain that might be waiting for you in life, you would not enter certain things. You wouldn't do certain things, but that would not be a life worth living. If I had known someone close to me was going to attempt to kill me and bite off half my ear, I might have just avoided friendships altogether, right? If I would have known that my marriage would end in divorce, I might have avoided relationships that have no kids, that have no experiences. If I would have known that my business would end up in bankruptcy, well, I wouldn't have learned all these incredible skills and met all these people that I met along the way. And so it is about the dance. Like, just welcome the dance and just dance the whole way, and let go of these expectations of what you should be, all this shoulds, right? Just be, just enjoy, just like whatever. There's nothing to win, there's nothing to lose. You've always been enough. Slow down, chill, enjoy the journey, laugh along the way, make fun of yourself, make fun of everything else. Life is a dance. It's a dance, like dance, right? Like, get back to that childlike energy. That's what's up. And in the Bible, it talks about to enter the kingdom of heaven is to be like a child again. And in my opinion, like, are you listening? Like, that means be a child again. Like, stop with the rigid BS, like, play, be a kid again. It's cool. It's okay to do that. We need more of that.
I just want to put a big exclamation point and say, yes, yes. It's the celebration, right? It's the dance
Yeah.
is like that celebration of life. It's not the burden of life. It's learning how, what's that saying, it's not about being in the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain. It's
Yeah.
that celebration of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. And you're existing for you and what really matters to you. And like what's come out of this a lot is, like, I have a unique experience that has allowed me to see, like, what really matters. And we spend so much of our time doing stuff for other people, that just to exist in their mind. And you don't, just FYI, you don't. They don't care. They're moving along, right? And so, like, be okay being embarrassed. And that's how you grow. You have to stretch and break your comfort zones. But if you're so concerned, if you're so judgmental to yourself, you're obviously going to be judgmental to others. That creates a roadblock in your life. You will not be able to move. And then you're going to become stagnant, and that stifles, not you, it stifles your soul, your spirit. And your spirit is part of the universe, and the universe is always expanding. So you have to remove that stuff. And when you remove it, welcome to life.
Another exclamation point. Exactly right. Troy, I'm sure people are listening going, I got to follow this guy. I got to find out what he's doing. I got to find out more, because your energy and your message is magnetic and it does resonate. It resonates for a lot of people that I'm sure are listening. So what are you doing besides giving them a book that they can use? What are you doing if somebody's out there going, I got to get more of this guy? Where can they find you, and how can you help them?
Yeah, great. Well, you can go to my website, troyfontana.co, not com.co. And there's resources there. You can reach out to me, connect with me. The way I make my living is through coaching, speaking, things like that. I have one-on-one clients that I work with. I also have a small group of people I work with, like in a group format. And I work on these types of things and more. I always say it's like health, wealth, and relationships. That's kind of the three areas. And I've been doing this for quite a while, 2 decades now. So I can go really deep on a lot of areas. Like there's gonna be more books to come, because even what I share in this book is like a fraction of what I actually teach. So I can really expand from this. Also, I have a YouTube channel, just my name, Troy Fontana. And I have a variety of topics in there. I talk about, just so you're ready for it, I have topics about attraction techniques, dating techniques. I have stuff about trauma on there. I have stuff about just living like what I call the boss lifestyle, just like leveling everything up, and a lot of it's pretty raw and unfiltered, but I like to be like that because I think that is life. I'm super open book, and because I want other people to be like that. I think we need more of that in life. So yeah, you can find me on the website, email me through there. Troy Fontana at Gmail is my email. If you ever want to email, drop a line. And then Instagram is troy.fontana.
Awesome. I'll
Yeah.
make sure all of that gets in the show notes so that they have it right at your fingertips. If you're interested, definitely follow him. Troy, your YouTube videos are awesome. I get them. They pop up because I subscribed, and there's always one of those jolting exclamation point types of lessons that you give, and I love them. They're sometimes just that little bit of juice that you need for a day, like, oh, yeah, that's something to think about or to share or to bring out in the day. So thank you for those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
So as we come to the close, we could talk for hours and there's so much more, but I want to encourage people to get the book. I want them to follow you and find their way to how you might be able to serve them. But before we go, the name of this podcast is It Just Takes One, because it just takes a book or something to make a difference, to change somebody's life. And I'd love to hear from you. What does that mean to you? It just takes one.
I mean, it takes one conversation, one decision, one idea, one moment. And it really speaks. I love that because it speaks to the art doing, of doing the thing, take the action. And, maybe a last little tip with that too is like in life, learn to honor right action versus the outcome. Your brain is stuck in the outcome. It needs to look a certain way. It needs to be perfect. My book's not going to be the best. My book's not going to be perfect. You're honoring the wrong thing. It just takes one, right?
Mm.
Honor the right action. Just do it. Right? You never know who gets that book, right? And who it really resonates with, who that really helps or impacts. Whatever it is, have that conversation. Pick up the phone, but like be about it. Take action.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Keep doing the work. Keep writing. You are an incredible writer with not only a great story, but just a great mission right now. You're so aligned with what you were given as a superpower to be here to do. And I just want to see you continue to share it and watch where you go.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your support. So much
Always.
love and appreciation. Thank you.
Always. All right. We'll talk soon.
Okay.